We will call the meeting to order. Are you good on the computer side there?
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, before we start, I would like to acknowledge the ancestral, cultural, traditional, and unceded territory of the Shoshone, Bannock, and Northern Paiute people on which we are meeting today. Welcome, everyone. Everyone should have copies of the minutes that you received in your packet. And I'd like to know if there's any question or if anyone would like to move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
We'll move to approve. Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Jennifer? Yes, you're on.
Oh. At the end, yeah. It's the next one.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, happy holidays. Just a pretty brief update this time around. Apologies for the mask. It's for your benefit. As you know, last month we had to say goodbye to Kenzie Lawrence. She left and moved back to Washington with her family. So we do have this position open right now. We are actively recruiting. It's been open, I think, for 2 weeks. We currently have 17 candidates. And we're hoping for more. So we did extend it 1 more week and would love anybody's help in getting the word out. I think it's important to recognize in the cultural sites, we tend to think of the James Castle House as being very art focused. Of course it is, but it's also a historic home. And so I hope that we get some candidates who also have a history background. So keep that in mind if you're starting. There we go.
And
So
I'm sorry, can I just ask, is that position for full-time?
It is a full-time position. That's correct. Yep. And reports up to Kristen Hill, who runs the whole cultural sites program. All right. There we go. So over the past few months, just to give you sort of an internal update on what we've been up to, we've been working on strategic planning for both the near term, meaning 1 year, as well as 3-year and even 5-year out for some of the programs, in particular archives, because there's some facilities things involved there. The goal with doing the strategic planning is, now that I've been around for a year and we're mostly fully staffed up, we're trying to all sort of get on the same page and be moving the whole program forward together with collaboration between different divisions, and a clear North Star for what we're trying to provide to the community. With that, part of what we are trying to do in our efforts to become more visible in the community and for people to know what we do, we seem to still struggle a little bit with what does the current do, is to provide more predictable and repeatable programming. And so with that in mind, we are doing a lot of something that Jennifer's team came up with, Jennifer Weibar, the communications and outreach team came up with, which is this concept of core programming, initiative-based programming, and then what we call opportunistic programming. The core programming is sort of our first focus, right? What are the things that we are going to be doing every year with little tweaks here and there, right? But like the community can come to count on it, that in, on Tuesdays from April to October, we always do fill in the blank. Whether it's the Platte Tour, the original Boise Platte Tour, or it's the Downtown Art Tour, whatever those core things are, we are trying to establish what they are and create that bucket so we all kind of know exactly what those opportunities are for the future, for the community. The initiative-based things are things that we're all going to be working on together that are typically going to be related to whatever the mayor and city council have in their heads as the strategy for the city. So anything, for instance, right now that's related to creating a city for everyone, right? So serving underserved populations, perhaps it's gathering oral histories like we have in this last year of the Chinese community, but then we would also maybe have some other kind of programming with public art and with the cultural sites that's also related to that same initiative. So the idea is to kind of get all of the divisions on the same page on an annual basis moving forward. So that's what a lot of the strategic planning is about. Once that's done, I'll be daylighting that with the mayor's office. They've already seen the draft, but really kind of finalizing that, and hopefully in January, maybe February, it's a bit of time to get through all the goals. I will of course be sharing that with you all so you can see what that looks like. Just a quick note on the accreditation. I think most of you in the room know that there was a site visit that was done by 2 peer reviewers from the American Alliance of Museums last month. And it was a very successful process, very grateful for those of you who met with them. I know Chris and John both did. Don't think either Melissa or Catherine did, but it was a really successful visit. Kristen did an incredible job hosting the team. Sam gave an incredible tour at James Castle House. It was really fabulous. And so I have high hopes that we'll get a yes, but even if we don't, I think it's really important that we did definitely put the best foot forward that we could. And I think whatever we hear back from them will be really helping us to continue to grow and make that program better. So it was really, really positive.
Is that a binary response? Is it a yes or a no? You can redo later, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is a yes or no, but the no typically can come with if you do these things, you can sort of re-up your application. So they said basically it was a very friendly visit, and I guess it's the first kind of thing like that I've ever done. I guess these visits tend to be quite friendly. So they were, very positive and had a lot of good things to say. There were a couple of constructive criticisms along the way that might end up just, making the difference, but are very easy to fix. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see, but it's not like a, no, you can't do it. No, and you're done forever.
Right. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Of course. I just want to give you a brief update on what's happening with the Capital City Development Corporation projects. We, as you know, have been working really hard. Both the public art program and now the history program as well is doing a lot of work there. Stephanie will update you on some of the details, but of those last 2 things, Old Boise blocks and linen blocks. The newest thing is the one on the top here, which is the interpretive signage. I will be presenting to CCDC's board on Monday to request funding for 16 interpretive signs that will be placed from 3rd to 16th Street. That will basically tell Boise's history through the lens of Grove Street. So looking at immigration, migration trends, housing and how that changed from individual mansions like the C.W. Moore mansion to boarding houses to ultimately residential hotels, and what those transitions look like. We'll be looking at the commercial and business transitions and evolution along Grove Street from laundries and lumber yards actually sitting there to car-oriented businesses. So 16 signs are what we are asking for. Of course, they will be placed alongside and in proximity to the art that's being done in these 2 areas as well, to provide context for the art that's being commissioned and is going to be installed in those places. So all of that together is really, of course, intended to be very much placemaking and intended to provide our citizens and our residents with an opportunity to come down and actually learn a little bit about the place they are in, and what used to be there and how it's changed over time, and who people that have made Grove Street what it is. Any questions on that?
It's great. I think Grove is such an misunderstood maybe. Its place and history and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great way to elevate a little bit.
Good.
Is CCDC handling the neon sign component themselves? Because that's the one that same corridor, isn't it, right? Where all the automotive dealerships.
It is. So let me give you a really high level update on that. The person who owns the neon signs is an individual who has created a nonprofit around those signs to try to do something with them. And the agreement that the city through Arts and History has with CCDC regarding those signs is that our department agreed to work in good faith to help the sign owner get a sub-licensing agreement to place her neon signs in the public right of way. The city of Boise has what they call a master agreement with the Ada County Highway District that allows us to sub-license out to, you know, whether it's that or street lamps or what have you. We are in the middle of negotiating that sub-licensing agreement right now with the neon sign owner. Her name is Vanjie. Last name? I can't remember her last name. Her organization is called Sign of the Times. And it's been a bit sticky, and so we're just still working through that.
Okay, is the power bill part of that?
It is part of it.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
Not that I'm
What-
interested in
what-
that. If the power bill is included in that process. Okay, we've heard a little bit about.
Yeah, that's one of the sticky parts. So I expect that this will get designated as a project by the board on Monday. It's been blessed by both by the CCBC's executive director. And so once it gets designated, we'll go back and create a type 4 agreement with them that will provide for the reimbursement costs of doing the signs, and then the history team internally will begin cranking because they want those done by the end of September. Because of the sunsetting of the district. So, yeah. So,
Jennifer, can I just make one comment?
please,
Talked for a long time, many years, about, you know, interpretive signage in general. And one of the goals that we talked about was like, how do we create a template or a repeatable model so that, you know, you go through the work to do this, and if it could be then leveraged for other programs, et cetera, later without as much development expense, et cetera. So I would just recommend that as you're doing it, you probably already are, but to keep that thing in mind for longer term post project.
thank you. That's an excellent idea. We currently, my experience doing signs since I've been here is that we have been working with one of the graphic designers that is active in the community, actually an artist too, Stephanie Eden. And so that graphic designing work is of course an opportunity for the creative economy locally. But I think it makes a lot of sense for her to ask somebody like her or her to create a template like that she can then help us just kind of plug things into as we do more of these. So great idea. Thank you much.
Almost does great work. So
So just a quick update on the history program. The Fettuccine Forum, of course, is about halfway through now. We've got 2 more lectures coming up in February 1st and March 2nd, I believe. February 1st is Carl Brooks, who anybody who's been in Boise for, I don't know, a while knows him. He was very well known in the community. He was a lawyer, he worked for Idaho Conservation League, and was also a legislator here for many years, and he's also a trained historian. So he'll be flying in from Kansas to give us a history of sort of the environmental movement in Boise and the connections it's created politically, locally. So I think that'll be a really good talk. I imagine that will be a packed house because he has a lot of connections locally. So strongly recommend you coming and enjoying that with us. The history team is planning to do finally the resource page launch in January. It's been a long time coming. There've been a lot of stops and starts with the staff turnover and other things, but we're really excited about that. And really probably the most exciting thing in my mind is that Maureen, the new history program manager, started a brand new tour series. She started in September and she already gave a tour the day after Thanksgiving. Both tours were fully registered. She gave 2 of them. They were in the Boise foothills right near in Military Reserve, basically. They were mostly flat and just basically a history of the 160th anniversary and the founding of Boise. So apparently they were quite well attended and a lot of fun. So very excited about that.
It's great.
Yeah.
Could I just reiterate what Jennifer said? So Carl Brooks, I've known for longer than I'll admit, you know, he's very knowledgeable about issues related to obviously the environment, but also water issues and the history of damming in Idaho and all that. So he just knows it very well, and anybody can make it out. I'd recommend you do so. It'll be interesting.
Interesting, and he's an incredibly charismatic speaker too, so it'll just be fun. And yeah, he wrote a book on the Hell's Canyon complex. So
Which direction?
which direction?
Was it just a historical?
Yeah, just it was a graduate dissertation, his history dissertation.
Nobody really read the book. Not yet.
He didn't say like tear them down or anything
That was
like
the
that. Yeah. Nope. So then I just want to leave you with a lot of really exciting things coming up. A lot of our grantees are having an exhibition, having events over the next month or so. So I just want to put these up on the screen. I want to draw particular attention to two of them. The Boise Bard Players, which is an organization, actually Elagio gave us a little bit of flavor more about them the other day than I knew about. But I guess they're only about 5 years old and was a group of people, and I'm sure Emily can tell us about them too, who were having a hard time getting paid acting jobs in some of the theaters locally. And so they started their own, and they've been sort of a roving band of Shakespeare actors and doing this thing at bars. Well, I was all excited about this, so I decided I was going to go not tomorrow night, tomorrow's Thursday, Friday night, and apparently it's already sold out. So apparently there are heaps of fun, and it's a great, really great set of events to go do. So I strongly recommend that. And then I also want to bring attention to the Story Night, our new cultural ambassador. They've been active as always, and their new locations at Jump, just so everybody is aware of that. So if you are able next Tuesday to attend their late night, which, you know, for those of us over 50, that is actually 8 o'clock is like cold. I mean, late. So, yeah, so I strongly recommend you guys come if you're able to.
And I did see, was that your first time?
That was my first for their regular season. I've gone to a late night now and their regular season, and both are fantastic.
They are so
I
much fun.
recommend, yeah.
You never know though. Like some of them are so awkward, you just want to just not be there. And then others laugh so hard, and then others like you ugly cry. My friend always brings cocktail napkins now, like the staff. So when she's like, I have to be prepared.
Yes.
And the most recent one, we witnessed Guinness Book of World Record in the middle of the show. He broke, was it 110 pencils? And it was in under a minute. You just never know what you're gonna see when you show up.
And it was very like photographed in time.
It was tense for like a solid 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
I work with his wife at HP,
Oh,
but he's always like, I think he might hold the record for breaking the most world records.
Well,
really?
that's
Oh, wow.
impressive.
But he does stuff like, I'm gonna break 100 pencils.
but he was one of the storytellers, and then in addition to that, broke a record. It's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Okay, then that's the rest of it.
It's fun. Part of that was my recent experience with Thanksgiving play. At BCT. We're going to. It's both awkward and. So you don't know if you want to be there, but then you're also laughing.
That'll be your experience.
And the lobby artist is a grant recipient. Oh, gorgeous. Stephen Afega. Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Which I have been curating the lobby art for them, so I try to match artists with the thing. Love that. Did you curate the snacks? Because they're very good. Oh, we'll talk about it. They are good. The henna.
So I'm just closing with commission requests, 2 of which I've already mentioned. But the last one is the Cascadia Music Summit, and I just want to give a lot of credit to Tilly. She's been working extremely hard with the mayor's economic development team to bring the music policy forum to Boise this week. It actually starts tomorrow. It's a group of music policymakers from across the country that have always met in Washington DC until this year when they're meeting in Boise, Idaho. Coming off of Tree Fort last year, there was a lot of energy. And so the mayor's office, with their economic development team, and then Tilly have just been working really hard. So 2 really amazing days. Tomorrow will be at Tree Fort Music Hall and will be about 82 delegates. I'll be attending that as well. And then on Friday, it's open to the public and there's many more that will be held at the Egyptian Theater. So if you're able to come, tickets on Friday are $25 just to cover costs. And it's going to be a fun day. I know you all have jobs, but it's going to be an exciting thing. It's great that it's coming. It really is going to help us build on the Tree Fort momentum that we have in the city. So, and with that, I will hand it over to, or what I don't know, I can't remember.
No, you're good. First.
Next, we're gonna do a presentation by Stephanie.
I think on the agenda, we actually have.
Oh, you were totally right. Yes, thank you.
So it's okay, I don't have to wait till Gabby's back in the meeting.
We're gonna wait. Or,
We're doing elections before we go.
Yeah.
So,
Or we could go with Stephanie and then. Whoever most time.
Is that okay to go out of order?
Can I get a motion to pass item 4A at this time?
I motion to move 4A and go with 4B at this time.
She's right. Second that.
I redact.
Withdraw your-
I withdraw my motion.
You can redact it too if you want.
Is it fun being a lawyer that hangs out with us or?
Absolutely.
Or is it sometimes irritating, like you go home and you're like, you wouldn't believe. Because I did that.
I will stay sad.
Yeah.
He's taking it.
Okay, so we'll continue on to 4A, which is the election for chair and vice chair, and I just want to provide a little bit of context. If that's okay, can I call on you to provide context, additional context as well?
Sure, do you want to start?
I can start.
Sure.
So historically, the role of commission chair was there was a chair, and then that time frame for that was not necessarily ordered. And so a couple of years during in the aftermath of COVID, one of the things that some of you were around for that, would be we elected, sorry, bad word, we chose to do selection every year for chair and vice chair. And we have not done that in 2024. So we wanted to do that. The intent is that we have that leadership piece be able to roll, from different commissioners to have that experience, and it's a role that I was doing prior to, and then since we chose to do those elections. So that's my context. What else would you say?
Yeah, so we adopted policies and procedures a while back. I can't remember exactly how long ago, kind of memorializing the positions of chairperson and vice chairperson, and providing for an election annually for these offices. I think everyone's pretty well aware that the responsibilities are essentially running the meeting and then participating in the executive meeting that we have prior to this commission meeting to set the agenda and all of that. Anyone is eligible for these offices, and there's nothing preventing someone that's held the office previously from holding it again or anything like that. But it was designed to allow for turnover and other people to experience these positions. So there's no specific procedure mandated for the election. I think what I would recommend is to have a general discussion about who may be interested. You can nominate yourselves or nominate others, but obviously if you nominate someone else, they have to accept that nomination in order to be considered. If we have multiple people that are interested in running for a particular seat, then we can have a vote that you actually voice vote as to who you are voting for. If there's only one person that is generally being considered, then I think in our normal type of voting to approve the person selected would be sufficient.
Not on the spot, confuse people.
Yeah, well, I mean, nominations, before we go forth with a, motion to approve the office, the person for that office, there can obviously be, time for discussion and campaigning for yourself if that's necessary. But yeah, there's no absolute mandated procedure here, so it's just kind of going through it and making sure that we let anyone that's interested have a chance.
Any questions? No questions?
When does it take effect? Sorry.
So let's actually, I don't know that we said that. 1 second, let me review this to see if we had a date, like an effective date.
I think it would make sense to add it from like January to December.
The term is defined as 1 year from the date of the vote at the public meeting. Is the way that we have it defined in here, so technically it would take effect at the time of the vote.
No pressure. Did this really Jonathan duties? Just is there anything for that?
What's that?
You could
I
wait
guess,
till the end of the meeting.
what?
You could wait till the end of the meeting.
Yeah, you guys can absolutely wait till the end of the meeting and let John finish up, that's.
I just like a whole opens up and you just.
Yeah.
My John. A shroud.
Are you enjoying doing it? Like, are you wanting to also continue or are you hoping?
I have done it for quite a long time, and I'm entering my final year, I believe, being on the commission, so I would recommend that I not be that person.
Chair Emeritus.
Sure.
So that's my personal recommendation.
I think I would be ready to do it.
I think, let's just go for it. I nominate Chris. How do we?
I'm gonna make friends with Robert.
Robert's laws.
And his rules.
Great.
I've already talked to Wendy Fox, became the president of Ally Rep, and so we're gonna Robert rules each other back and forth, we're gonna practice. So I would,
So we have a nomination.
Do we second nominations?
I just need confirmation from Vice Chair Clegg that you are accepting the nomination.
I am accepting the nomination of chair of the department.
Is there anyone else that's interested in the position of chairperson? All right, well then, at this point then, can we get a motion to approve Vice Chair Clegg as the new chair?
Wait, are we voting or motion? Sorry.
Motion.
Motion.
A motion, thank you.
Can I
I
get
motion to Chris.
to nominate Vice Chair Clegg
Yes, thank you.
as the new chair, okay? Effective beginning of the January meeting.
Effective at the January meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second? Then since there's only one person, all those in favor is fine.
All those in favor?
Can I find myself?
Just- Did you hear about the person that lost the election by one vote? And he didn't vote for himself?
I did hear, I remember.
It's a real thing. Sorry, I interrupted.
So moved.
Like,
It's like, yeah,
a little
excited.
But I'm glad John's still gonna be here.
Yeah, yeah.
Cause like, we're all so new in your history. Like even tonight, talking about things and. That's. I appreciate
You've got 1 year, mind that people. Okay, so that's for the chair.
Yeah, at this point, is anyone interested in the position of vice chair?
I nominate Commissioner Cobb.
I assume that you accept that nomination, Commissioner?
Yes, I offer again.
Anyone else that's interested in the position of vice chair? Can we get a motion?
I'm gonna move to appoint Commissioner Tom to vice chair.
Effective the January meeting? Yes. And a second? Perfect.
All those in favor?
I myself.
You don't want to lose.
So moved.
Cool. Okay, good job, guys. You
Well
followed
done.
the rules so well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And
It's not that bad.
just quick disclaimer, we can update these policies and procedures as well at any time, which we might want to take a look at because I think it still says 3:30 is the start time for the meeting. So we
We
might
just
want
talked
to go
about
through
this.
some refinement.
Also, I would like to apologize. I just got back from Twin Falls and thought we were meeting at 5:30 for some reason, even though it's like, so I'm sorry. Yeah, traffic was awful.
Yeah, it's better. Okay. Tyler, anything else on that subject?
Nope, that'll do it. Well done.
And then I can. You know, maybe we can. Talk offline. As we move forward, but. Stephanie has been waiting a long time. So Stephanie, would you like to take over? Please?
All right, well, first, so I'm going to present the official proposal for the Old Boise Blocks water wheel barrier public art project, which is a Capital City Development Corporation Type 4 agreement project. I'm gonna give just a brief overview of what public art is and what we're big picture doing with this project, just in case anybody would like a refresher. So we are creating artwork that is going to be put in a public space funded by public money with public process. And the goal is to emphasize the public and public arts. And we're centering the community in that process. So the role that arts and history plays in this is that we are providing meaningful experiences and opportunities through accessible public art programming that cultivates the evolving identity of Boise and fosters a sense of place. And of course, our program is supported by the Percent for Art Ordinance. And our public ed team manages and cares for the public arts throughout Boise. And just an overview definition of public art and placemaking, which is really what we're trying to do with every large scale project that we take on. So creative placemaking is a process where community members, artists, arts and culture organizations, community developers, and other stakeholders use arts and cultural strategies to implement community-led change. This approach aims to increase vibrancy, improve economic conditions, and build capacity among residents to take ownership of their communities. And the public art emphasizes this process by creating a visual anchor or marker that reflects the identity and values of a community or place. And that really was one of the goals and pieces of criteria for this water wheel project. And those are just some examples, including one of our own, around the Northwest of public art projects. And then I wanted to emphasize how this project fits in the greater vision for our public art collection. So our collection includes site-based installations, traffic boxes, our Boise Visual Chronicle, which is within our Portable Works collection, as well as temporary opportunities. Our collection is nearing 1,000 works, and we strive to build a public art collection that is diverse, interesting, and meaningful. These new projects are opportunities to expand our collection with new artists, new subject matter, and new mediums and materials. So this project, again, was $100,000 award to commission an artist to design an artwork to be installed in front of the historic water wheel at C.W. Moore Park. That image there on the right shows the water wheel as it is, and the barrier is represented by that grayed out rectangle. So it's essentially to be a barrier between the sidewalk and the water wheel. So the selected artist will design and fabricate this iconic and meaningful artwork that embodies the significance of the water wheel and the identity of the Old Boise Blocks area. The project background and goals and selection criteria were, why that's covering that, but they were derived from the historical research of the neighborhood. So this artist was selected through a selection panel process that Chris Clegg can speak to in a moment. But I just wanted to share what their roles and responsibilities are in case that's of interest. And a couple of you have been on public art panels at this point, but it's good to kind of remind ourselves. They represent the Boise community in this selection process, and they are the public voice in the selection. They uphold our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility statement, and uphold our goal to expand and enrich the public art collection. They act in an ethical manner, and they review and independently score each application using reasonable, rational, and consistent judgment. So we help them do that by creating some criteria and some a score sheet to follow. So every application is scored consistently with the same score sheet, essentially. The panelists scored on, so each application went through a pre-qualification round. It was pretty, pass or fail. They had a signature page. Sometimes applications don't have signatures. Unfortunately, that applicant gets disqualified. And so then we narrowed it down to the ones that passed that first round. And the panelists scored based on artistic quality, ability to follow through. Artists had to show past work. They had to identify past projects that were of similar size and scale. They had to include historical themes in their application. They had to show how their project would contribute to the unique identity of C.W. Moore Park. And they needed to have a vision for the park in the greater Old Boise Blocks area. They also had to speak a little bit about the material and methodological feasibility for their project and how their project would expand the collection. And we landed on Bobby's Maze, sculpture LLC. It's a picture of Bobby there, and then a couple pieces of his past works. The work on the bottom, Bob's from Arizona, so he's based in Tempe, Arizona, I believe. He is a metal worker, is his background, but he's worked in quite a few different mediums. And he does kind of a wide range of types of work, like none of the pieces that he's done and the projects that he's worked on, none of them look the same. And so I think that was something that was attractive to the panelists because we would essentially get something really unique for this artwork. I wanted to point out the artwork in the bottom left there uses a material called, I'm gonna blank on the name. It's a polyurethane material essentially that's sandwiched. It's like a color film sandwiched between two pieces of polyurethane. And he's using that material in his proposal. So I wanted to show what it looks like.
Thank you, because I had questions.
So that was good. Yeah, yeah. So the proposed artwork is called, I think it's pronounced clepsydra. Because it has to do with so the word means water clock in ancient Greek. It's a device that was used to measure time using the flow of liquid into or out of a vessel, kind of like an hourglass. His proposed materials are steel, polyurethane. Should I wrote it down? It's called Lumicore. Is what that plastic material is called, and he's going to use it in the wheel, the spoked object in the center there. His woven components are for texture and complexity, and he's going to use a little bit of color to draw attention. The installation is going to be set on this sandstone pedestal here, and it's going to come from the local sandstone quarry out of Boise. So the composition of vessels are all unique, representing the immigrant populations who inhabited the neighborhood: China, Germany, Sweden, Japan, Russia, and the Basque region. It serves its intended function and creates the illusion that the park is breaking into the street plane. And this collection of uncommon objects, abstractions of wheels and water vessels are sure to spark a new curiosity and engagement. So this is kind of a zoom in of how he plans to execute the surface treatments of these objects. So it's going to be doing a combination of some embossing. There's going to be some really cool woven pieces. He has, if you go to his website, artworks, 3D artworks that he does, that he uses strips of, I believe it's stainless steel. He's going to use perhaps silica bronze, kind of, it's like cord, but it's metal, and he weaves them into a 3D object. It's really cool. Definitely something very different than any other piece in our collection that we have. Also some faceted steel work here, and again, this is that stainless steel weaving. So there's some of it here, and then there's going to be some of it on these parts as well.
Can I ask about the accent colors? Are they all going to be blue, or will there be like the pieces that are highlighted blue right now? Will those be blue, or will they be a mix of the accent colors?
I think it's going to be one accent color. He's
Okay.
still trying to decide how this all works, because if you kind of look at how this metal kind of looks, it takes on kind of a blue kind of shade, as sort of like that's just its natural state that it wants to be. And so I think he's trying to work off of that to keep everything looking really consistent and looks like cohesive, that it all goes together. And I think the thing to keep in mind too is that this is a computer, right? Will look much more natural and organic as he works through it.
And then is the intent to be complementary of the water wheel that's there, or are they considered two pieces? Because I just wondering about how, like, if you pick that green, would it go well set against the backdrop of a different shade of green of the water wheel that's been established? And then also, one of the images, I thought when we were doing this, that the fence was supposed to create a barrier, but also still show off the water wheel, and it looks like some of the pieces are designed so it blocks a lot of water wheel from the street view.
It's only gonna be, I think the artwork itself is only 52 inches tall. And so then it's going on top of that sandstone pedestal, which I believe is 63 inches. I don't know what that is in feet, but I think we're thinking like somewhere in the range of like this tall. Yeah, it's not totally gonna block, but the idea was for it to be, like, you can still see the water wheel from the other side, but it's sort of drawing your attention to the history and like what the heck the water wheel even is and what the history of the neighborhood represents in that space. So yes and no. And then again, that middle spoke object is see-through.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And he's been very accommodating.
It's been so fun to work with.
He came into town, cause from the original artist call, just to see what he came up with was wild.
Yeah.
And then he did have a lot of color in his initial proposal and was asked like, we're not sure, can it take it down a little bit?
And he's still very much working through this, and he's really good at taking feedback. And so there's been quite a lot of back and forth between the selection panel and the design team, and then of course staff. And then today we had a consultation with Bobby and a contracted conservator, Claire Dean, to talk through the materials and how he's thinking through, you know, longevity and making sure everything's gonna be good, and that Jamil and Bellagio aren't going to all of a sudden inherit an artwork that they can't maintain. So it's really good.
And his historical pieces, was it The Time Machine, the blue one? He did a movie on it, you know, on the background and how he did it, and it's in kind of a rural area that signified crops, and it was just, you know, it looks very simple, but then when you get all of the background of the research he did.
And I plan on sharing that background, but for the context, but the signage or.
Yep. Yeah, and then there will be a QR code where a person could learn more as we move to our public art archive platform. And yes, so all of these pieces, these vessels represent each of the countries of origin, I suppose, of the people that lived in this neighborhood. And so he's really kind of taking that concept to another level of like, okay, there's water here, what does that look like, and how do we bring cultural significance in an interesting way into the visual plane. So I think I had one more slide on one of these other versions, but that's
Sorry,
okay.
there's 3, the one that was most recently.
Okay.
I have one question. It shows, I think that's 16 feet,
Yes,
and then the whole like space, about how long is that?
the whole space, I'm not
The
sure.
whole wall?
He's just working within sort of the width of the water wheel
Right.
itself, and I think maybe he's on either just a little bit overlapping just the side of it.
So not all of this part of the fence,
Right.
just.
So there's talk with ZGF, who's the landscape architects on contract with CCGC, about whether or not that fence that's there is going to remain, or if they're going to do a different kind of fence. Not sure, to be determined.
Does the water wheel get updated or changed at all as part of this project, or?
It does, and we've met with Parks a couple of times to talk through their thoughts and feelings on like how to treat the fence and whether or not they're okay with something that's either not as accessible as it is currently. The fence that's there now, they can't open it either. So we're working closely with them to try to make sure everybody's happy with the solution.
Very interesting.
And everybody, you all are happy with it and have fun to go forward in spring.
I think it's, I love the, continuing investments and. That part of it, it's great.
Well, and I love that the collection doesn't have anything like this.
Yeah. I think that's the key. It's different.
So you need a motion? I think we need to do something.
You're still the chair until the end of the meeting.
I had on another slide, I think the recommended motion is to approve this to go forward to city council. I would take this for their approval.
Motion,
Motion to approve the old Boise Block barrier design.
And then second that.
To be brought before our city council.
And second.
we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, so moved. It's definitely very interesting. Stephanie, there was on the agenda, there was an informational item. On fire.
521, so I don't have. An official update for that, but we have selected an artist team that everybody is very excited about. They're not on contract yet, so I can't share their name, but we are making moves.
I think the second selection process was hugely successful. The interview process was the best thing ever. So I think you really, it identified really great candidates, but also very clearly what the perfect fit for this project was. The other two candidates we could rave about in different situations, but it was very clear that the artist team selected is going to be great, and I'm so excited for you to meet them. Which we will all get to.
Well, thanks, Chris and Melissa, for your participation on this project.
It's very exciting.
It's great. All right, Emily.
Okay. So I am going to talk a little bit about a pilot program that we are hoping to launch in a couple of months, but we are still waiting on city council approval, which I'll talk about. But I wanted to just kind of go through what this might look like and what it means for the future of the grants program. So it's called the Catalyst Grant Pilot Program. And just a little bit of background, we have roughly $41,882 in unexpended funds, roughly. From FY23, and this was money that was unspent due to COVID-19 that has been carried over. And so the goal was to ensure that these dollars still land in the community as intended originally. So wanting to make sure that we got granted back to our cultural community. And we're also hoping that it just helps support the continued rebound from COVID-19. Actually just had a conversation the other day with someone that they said they were starting to see just shy of pre-COVID numbers in their audience at Opera Idaho. So that was really exciting. So just continue that bounce back that I think there's still that feeling that they're not quite there yet, but hoping to aid them in that. So for this program, just a quick overview, it'll sound a little familiar, just very similar to the annual program, but with some very important tweaks that I'll talk about. So this will support small scale and mid-sized arts history and cultural activities such as public programs, events, projects, exhibitions, tours, etc. throughout the year. So something to be mindful, it's a standard award size of $2,000. Again, we only have about $40,000 to grant out to the community. Applications will actually be accepted in 4 rounds. So the goal is to make it more frequent so that it can, it's called Catalyst, so that it can be, if someone has an idea, they can act on it. instead of an annual, where a lot of our we got feedback from our grant recipients that small organizations have challenges planning really far in advance. We're asking them to plan sometimes more than a year in advance. And so we're hoping that this can help remedy some of those issues for those smaller and mid-sized organizations. We're hoping to award up to 5 projects in each round. If for some reason we don't have as much interest in a round, or don't receive enough applications, or maybe they don't meet the criteria, we will roll that money over to the next round and hope to spend that at a later time. We see this being successful, and especially if earlier months we don't get as much interest. We know the summer months, there's a lot more going on in the community, so I'm pretty confident that we'll spend the money and maybe have more applicants than we have money to award. So, and as always, we have to spend the funding and we have to complete their projects prior to the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, 2024.
Maybe pause for a second.
Yeah.
It's still sharing Stephanie, so no
Oh.
on Zoom can actually see
Sorry.
yours.
So just stop and.
Yeah, if you stop and then reshare, it'll
Sorry.
pull up. There you go, yeah.
Yep, so.
That's you. Perfect, thank
Really
you.
far. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right, so as far as eligibility for this program, it would be very similar to the annual grant program, whereas it has to be it could be an individual or a representative of a nonprofit organization or a friends group of a government agency. It does have to directly benefit Boise City residents. If it's in someone who's from outside of Boise, the event or project has to happen within Boise City limits. It has to meet any venues that are associated with the project, has to meet ADA accessibility requirements. Also, similarly, it has to comply with the Department of Arts and History Equal Opportunity Statement, which is listed here. And then something new that we've added that I think has always been a consideration in the past, but we've now made it an eligibility requirement, is they have to use the budget template provided. And so it's kind of one of those pass fails where if they don't use it, they will not be eligible for funding. And we tried to make it really clear. It will be made clear if it passes that will be an eligibility piece moving forward. Yeah. I think it's just for clarity for the panelists, for reviewers, and also helps in their planning as they're thinking about how funding will be used in their projects. So I mentioned 4 rounds. This is what those 4 rounds look like, the breakdown. And so basically, once we hear a decision, if the decision is a go, we would launch the application on January 2nd, so kind of right after the holidays. Each time the round is open for about a month, so they have about a month to apply. And then once it closes, there's about 3 weeks for a panel to make a decision. And then once that decision is made, they'll be notified, and we promise about 3-week turnaround time for that. So, and again, final reports will be due on the 30th. If you'll notice the round 4, I tried to give a little extra wiggle room for the final report, just because funding, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for them to actually receive a check. And so I wanted to give just a little bit of wiggle room on that final report, but it will be prior to the end of closing out the fiscal year. So. And just one big difference for the Catalyst is 100% of the funding will be given up front. It's $2,000 standard award size. And so for this instance, it didn't make sense to split it up 80-20 as the annual, but they will be required to submit a final report that is a part of their agreement if they sign or if they are approved for funding.
And is the hope that this money, then we might get it next year again? Or this is just a one time?
This is a pilot program, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the goal is to sort of transition the annual program to more of a ongoing grant opportunity like this, and transition and work towards capacity building grant program in addition to projects and program funding. I don't know if you want to.
May I address?
Yes.
Yeah, just to address the question of funding, this is leftover dollars. This is not extra dollars, so we do not anticipate having $30,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, will the scoring tools and process be same, similar, different?
So I'm actually, one thing that I've started working on is very similar to what I think our other programs like Public Art has as a rubric and a scoring sheet that will have points associated with various criteria. So I'm hoping to make the process a little easier on the panelists. So there's very specific points that are awarded to each piece. Because I know that this is a lot of rounds that a panel will have to complete reviews for, and so I want to make it as easy as possible and as clear for applicants as possible. So it will be very similar though. The panel will be made up of, and I'll actually talk about that in a moment, so I can address that.
Thank you.
One other question too, so. You have a nonprofit that wants to try to go for all 4 rounds in 2000, or is it just you get 1 round?
Yeah, you get 1 round, but if you apply and do not receive funding and we give you feedback, you can apply again.
Okay.
If you receive funding, that's it.
Can you apply for the same idea?
So you could, if you didn't receive funding for it, we usually provide a little bit of feedback in the notification letter if the answer is no. And so if they wanted to come back again, that they're more than welcome to for that same project. I will say for annual grant recipients, they can come and apply for this, but they can't apply for a project that they've already received funding for. So like, you know, they couldn't try to get double funding from us for the same thing.
Great.
I actually know. Does the department consider any online or virtual events as like a qualifying event? Or does it have to be a like physical in person in the city of Boise?
I think they would just have to, I mean, this is me, I welcome to other input, but I think as long as it's benefiting the residents of Boise and it's following the criteria, we would judge it based off of the criteria we've set out. So I think it could be virtual. We would just use that same rubric and scoring criteria. And they would have to make the case that it was serving Boise residents.
Because in the past, we have had Garden City people try to apply and have said no.
Yeah.
You have to,
Right.
it has to benefit the city of Boise.
Yeah. All right. So the review criteria has shifted a little bit, and it's more just, I pulled out some specific pieces from community benefit that I felt like had equal weight. So quality is very similar. Community benefit, again, has to be meaningful to Boise residents. Quality has to have a clear proposal, has to have clear description and what it is that they're going to be doing and who's doing it, who are the bios and the people involved. Alignment with City of Boise and the Arts and History Department mission, that was always built into community development or community benefit, excuse me. I've sort of separated out so that we could assign it its own point value and rubric and scoring and make sure it's really aligning with the vision of a city for everyone. Creating a sense of place in Boise with history and culture and arts here. So that's been pulled out. Accessibility was another thing that was sort of under the community benefit, but thinking about accessibility through what kinds of offerings or services are people providing to make sure that everyone from, you know, anywhere in Boise can attend from all walks of life, and also accessibility as in affordability, which sort of built in, but I wanted to make sure it was called out and given again that point value so it could be easily scored on. And then finally management. So who's the project manager? Do they have a budget? And not now budget is required using our template, but is it balanced? Is it detailed? Have they really thought through how they're going to be spending the money? And review panel, so this will be made up of the Arts and History Commission members, staff, and then members of the community. It is an 8-month commitment, but we're anticipating that the workload is spread out over the 4 rounds instead of 52 applications all at one time. And so it's a similar amount of work, but spread out over a longer amount of time. And so there will be a training and then the reviews needed in February, April, June, and August. I have not really a clue what to expect as far as applications, but I'm anticipating around 30 to 50, which I know is a wide range. But throughout the course of a year, I think it could be very popular, depending on getting the word out and making sure people know it's an opportunity for them. We always say it's about 30 to 60 minutes to review and rank each application. And then we are hoping to continue that stipend to members of the community that participate and offer their service. Okay, so what I kind of mentioned, we're really piloting this model of this more frequent, multiple rounds of applications and want to get feedback from the community. I think long-term, I have some goals and dreams that I'm hoping that we can make happen. And I know the department has some goals and Jennifer has some vision for that as well. But really changing the Catalyst program, continuing to fund projects and programs, because I think it's so important to support the work that our cultural organizations are doing. But we've already heard feedback and sort of anecdotal and through conversations that really there needs to be some more of that capacity building support. And I think the goal would be to also, in addition to funding projects and programs, also have grant support that really supports the operations of an organization so they can also grow and build, not just the work that they're doing. So long term, I think that's something that we're hoping to build towards as we test out this pilot program, see how the format works and get feedback, and then make changes to our annual program as well. And then next up, so it's just December 12th, we're waiting on that very important vote. So we can see if we're able to move forward, and then implementing marketing and communication plan. We'll also have an open call for panelists for the annual and Catalyst grant programs. We're going to do an open call for all coming up from the community. And then, as I mentioned, the round 1 application will open on January 2nd.
Just one question too, with the idea of like opening up to more operational expenses and funding those. Just to be clear, would that be incorporated also with projects, like part of that same grant process, or would it be like 2 separate grants?
I'm not really sure exactly what that would look like. I'm hoping over the next year to get a lot of feedback from the community.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I want to hear what the needs are and where the city can provide the most support and in what ways. So I don't know the answer to what that looks like yet, but
Thanks for sharing.
in a year or so, I can answer. Any other questions?
So it's for the commissioners, the call for applications, is that will the commissioners follow the same process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I will be reaching out. I haven't been actually here for a process because I started right after the closing of the last grant. But I will be reaching out to get some support from the commission for both the panel leads for both programs coming up. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I just add one thing?
Please.
So just to be clear, council isn't, like, city council doesn't hear all those kinds of details. So what they're voting on is what's called a rebudget. So they have a whole bunch of things because other departments had money that they didn't spend here. So that's what the vote on Tuesday is. If anybody is actually gonna watch city council, that's what you'll be looking for, not like Emily up there presenting. So that's one thing. And then I just wanted to, I realized that I forgot, I don't want to take any time away from Emily, but I realized I forgot to mention that we do have an opening right now on this commission, and that there's a call out right now for that. So as we're talking about commissioners who are going to serve on panels and that sort of thing, we are fielding applications right now, and I expect the mayor put out a call for all the commissions because there's openings on all of them. So I'll update you next time around on the site.
Do you know what the timing is to close of that?
December 11th. For the, to be approved during the January.
I think that's from the council session.
Application should be by December.
No, but I think that they do that in order to be approved by January.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of applications.
Actually, only 2 thus far that have come in, but I've had a lot more interest than that come through any more applications I've seen thus far. So I think hopefully we're gonna get more.
I've got 3 friends that have said they're going, but one that I really wanna.
And staff has actually reached out to about 11 people as well that they thought would be good additions. So, yeah, we'll go through those and make a recommendation to the mayor of, the top 3 or 4, whatever she asks for, and then, I imagine she'll interview them and make a decision.
What's the department's feelings on artists who's come through for projects being on the commission? I've always just kind of wondered if there's a potential conflict there. If it would be a huge benefit to us, I think, to have a performing artist.
Sure.
commission, But
Yeah,
It would absolutely be to our benefit, but it might not be to their benefit
Right.
because it would preclude their applications to all of the opportunities that this commission speaks to.
And we do have past experience with those dynamics, so.
anyway, I apologize. I didn't stay away from it, but I was like, I need to mention the rebudget and then also the commission. So, but any other questions on?
I'm excited to see how this goes.
Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the flat amount.
Mhm.
So I think that could become an issue. I think it slows down the process a little bit.
Well, I think it also helps organizations know what kind of level of effort they need to put into it, for the amount that they're getting, right? Because that's so hard to judge, We don't know what the reward will be.
Yeah, I have plans to survey and ask, their experience with this format and process and get that back to you, so.
Any other questions? Comments?
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about the conversation you guys are having around including operational funds, because I think just being in the nonprofit world, there's so few grants available to that, and you can't always rely on donations, and so that's really exciting to me, yeah.
All right. Any other last minute items, Jennifer? All right, and I'll have a motion to adjourn. Second by Gavin. All those in favor? So moved.